Good evening. This is John Warren, publisher of the San Diego Voice and Viewpoint newspaper, coming to you with our program From the Desk of the Editor, which is an open mic discussion period we do to look at the issues before us. We invite you to join us either online at godradio1.com or by phone at 858-251-6111. We are streaming live as we do this. And so I'm here joined by Dr. Leonard Thompson, our media partner. And we always remind you that the Voice and Viewpoint is San Diego's oldest and only continuously publishing African-American oriented publication. We are in 89 zip codes, 17 cities, the unincorporated areas. We are available online. You may also download our app in the Google or Apple store. And we're available by mail in terms of subscribers. You'll see a number of churches get our paper each week as we support the community. And in addition to us doing those things, you can find the paper in some retail outlets as well as single copy sales in newsstands. We're reaching the point, and I've been reminded my distribution people to almost beg the community to tell people, please do not take more than one paper at a purchase. We're running into a lot of problems with our newsstands. People are putting dimes and nickels and pennies in when the machine clearly says a quarter. It's not equipped to take a Susan B. Anthony because you want two. It clogs up the mechanism. It's not equipped to take the dollar coin. That's important. And the people that we're finding doing this, I know last week my son caught about 5 people at the Earl B. Gilliam Post Office in succession, just reaching in and grabbing a handful of papers. And some of them belong to churches that we give papers to each week. We give so many papers to the churches, not trying to do them for the whole congregation, but it kind of helps people for those who get there and can't get out or get around or not mobile. And so we've made those kind of adjustments. And so all we ask is the only publication that's still left at 50 cents in San Diego. If you pick up a copy of the UT, it's like $1.75 and $2 something on the weekend. We're not going to raise the price at any point. We're going to keep it there. We want it to be obtainable for our community and for you. And so when people steal from us, right now we lose 40% of our distribution to theft every week. And that's separate and apart from the vandalism in terms of one group of people marking up the stands, another group smashing the windows, and then those of us who are just stealing papers. So we just need your help. If you appreciate us being here, we don't want to wait the one day and then people are talking about, oh, what happened? Where did it go? You know, we're remaining here. Since I've been publisher, we've lost 12 newspapers in San Diego County. And so we are survivors because of you, our community, and our supporters, and we want to keep doing what we do. Okay, so we just want to throw that out for you. Didn't plan it, but we just really need to have your help.
One of the things that Dr. Warren, we're seeing this sense of entitlement throughout the country. We're seeing people's integrity be going into question where they're doing snatch and grabs. And if they're not paying attention to what is taking place in America, it is simply that there are stores that are closing their doors to communities. They're saying, okay, if you come in here to rob and to do these mass stealing things, we will just shut it down and you won't have us in your community. And we're seeing that Target is closing 9 stores nationwide, several of them in California, due to the mass theft. The same things with newsstands and newspapers. Not only, and I will say this as being the oldest African American owned newspaper in the city of San Diego, and really one of the few adjudicated newspapers that are active in our community. It is really sad that we see stands being vandalized, not outside of our communities, because sometimes we expect when we're in areas that are not friendly to African Americans that we might see that. The sad thing is when we see it vandalized within our community, and then we as a people then take it upon ourselves to not be integral and to steal from one another. I always say, Scripture says whatever's done in the dark will come out into the
Yes.
light. And I tell people, if you steal, you're killed. And so the reality comes in is that you should never ever have an attitude with anybody that steals from you if you're stealing and you're stealing publicly and you act like it's no big deal. But the energy of society now is, if I don't get caught, I didn't do it. But we need to do better than that. We need to maintain our integrity even when people are not watching or even when people don't require it of us. And that is just in general for whatever we do in society. People go there, and I remember when folks would go to grocery stores during cherry season, and they would eat enough cherries
Yes.
to the point that they didn't need to take no cherries home.
Nope.
But that was stealing, even though you was like, oh, I was just tasting them. A taste is one or two. Anything above that is just eating.
Well, that's a very important point, Dr. Thompson, because in commercial law, they make the point that, so many times people are shopping and they're tasting the grapes and the strawberries. They might put a carton in their container in their basket, but by the time they get to the counter to weigh it, it don't have the same weight because they ate half of them.
Yeah.
Just recently, I had an interesting experience. I went to a Smart & Final to purchase something, and while I was there getting some water, I picked up a container of plastic forks, which I set next to the water because I use that top tray so I don't have to strain the lid.
Yeah.
So when I was checking out, the lady just reached over and she did the water, and I didn't think about it until I got to my car and I looked at the list, because when I moved the water, I saw the forks. I said, oh, she didn't charge me for these. I took the forks and my receipt. I went back in the store. I went up to the counter, and she was checking out one person. And I said, excuse me. I said, you didn't charge me for these forks, and it's not on my list, and I want to pay for it. And she looked at me like I was crazy. And so I stood there. She checked out that person, and then she started checking out another person, at which point I just left the forks laying on the counter. I said, I don't need them that bad. But see, we got to understand that God does not wink at stealing, okay? Theft is theft. If
Yeah.
you take it and you didn't pay for it, you're stealing.
Yeah.
And then we get mad with people watching us. But over the years, it's been us stealing. And I got to mention this in Grossmont, in the Grossmont the boulevard out there, across from the hospital, where I've had a newsstand for at least 10 or 12 years. Someone, I don't know how they did, is a bus stop, they tore that stand apart literally, tore it up, bent it like it was aluminum foil,
Yeah.
and just left it all. That's vandalism.
Yeah.
Can't use it anymore. And so these are things that we keep trying to share with folks, and we've got to get to the point that we care. I mean, we have to help each other.
Yeah.
I would love to hire more of us if those of us who do business with other people would insist that those people do business with us in addition to wanting to do business with them.
Yeah.
And we're the only community that doesn't pull together like that.
Yeah. And we also need to hold the stores accountable, like your 7-Elevens and these outlet stores at gas stations, to start carrying our paper just like they carry everybody else's paper. I think that is important that we see our paper in many places so that people can get their hands on it, because, again, it is great information, it is quality, and it keeps you abreast. And so that commercial being said, we're going to get down to the politics at hand tonight.
Yes.
Lord Jesus, are they going to shut the airports down? Is TSA ain't going to get paid? Is the military ain't going to get paid? What's going on? We 3 days, October 1st, we looking at a government shutdown, and your boy Donald Trump is like saying, shut it down.
Well, we need people to understand three things. And I have a editorial this week that speaks of the border, then it speaks of duty, privilege, responsibility. I think the same thing applies to all of us, because what is happening now is the mega entities that supports Trump, those people, they want a government shutdown. And today was the height of absurdity where the Senate has passed a bipartisan continuing resolution and they want to send it to the House. And McCarthy has said he will not bring it to the floor, knowing that it would help stop the shutdown.
Mm-hmm.
And the Democrats have published a list of the things they want to wipe out as a condition for agreeing. And there's no way the Democrats can. They want to cut food stamps. They want to cut education funds. They want to cut child care. They want to cut Social Security in the future. They just want to just go through stuff. And then today, Marjorie Taylor Greene got on the floor and offered a resolution or a proposal that Secretary Austin, who is an African-American retired four-star general, the Secretary of Defense, that his salary be cut to $1 a year as a part of it, which is not going to go anywhere. That's the height of absurdity. Then this Tumbleson character from Alabama who is held up over 300 and some promotions. But Taylor Greene and them can talk about how, in the interest of defense, we need to do this because we got to support the troops. But the troops are about to go without pay. Their families are going to be hurting without money. Contractors who are building stuff for us that we can maintain defense readiness are going to have their contracts put on hold. TSA is going to be working without any salary. The border security people are going to be working at no pay with checks being owed. All of the federal employees who are forced to work will not get paid due to this situation. And then on top of that absurdity, this other Beaupart woman gets up and suggests that another Assistant Secretary of Defense who is transgender, that his salary should be reduced to $1 a year. And if they don't do that, then we don't want it. We're going to let it hold it. Then Tumbleweed gets up there after the Senate votes to confirm General Brown, who would be the second four-star black general to head the Joint Chiefs of Staff. They say, well, he's mixing a lot of stuff up that we don't need to be mixed up, and so that's why we shouldn't do it. And I'm not blaming these three individuals. I am blaming the American people who will sit back and let these fools destroy this country and our government and democracy because of their cult-like affinity to perhaps one of the craziest people on the planet since Adolf Hitler.
Yeah.
And they don't care that they're destroying America because our enemies are sitting out there watching this. Russia, Iran, North Korea, they fill in the gaps in terms of reaching out to people. We look like fools on a global scale as they attack Biden for his age because if you go back to the most primitive societies, they always had an unwritten rule that if a person was mentally insane or off, they didn't bother them. They wouldn't kill them. They wouldn't execute them. They just let them live out their life. But at the same time, they wouldn't make them chief or leader either.
Yeah.
And so we look like fools when we want to put a fool in charge of this nation, when we want to condemn Biden, who brought us back from a brink, even though right now we're still suffering. The high gas prices and food stuff is up and hasn't come down, the labor things. But the American people could stop some of this just by speaking up. Mm-hmm. And so the reason Trump's folks want this to happen is because they want to move us to the Civil War. Now, let me make this last observation. When this bill arrives, this continuing resolution arrives in the House, Hakeem Jeffries, he could institute a requirement to get a discharge petition. Under the rules of the House, a discharge petition takes 218 signatures, and then the Speaker is forced to bring it to a floor for an up or down vote. Well, we know that the Democrats are going to vote for it, but we also know that McCarthy only has about a 4-vote margin. Mm-hmm. So it's going to take some Republicans to vote with them, but they have the capacity to do this. Mm-hmm. And when Jeffers was asked about this today, he just want to say all options are on the table. Well, at what point do y'all stop playing politics on your side and say, this is too important to American people, we're going to pull out the stops? Mm-hmm. This is my complaint with Joe Biden, that he wanted to pull out the stops after the abortion decision, but he didn't pull out all of the stops for the George Floyd or also for the late congressman from Georgia,
Yeah.
John Lewis. And so even those who are supposed to be our friends are playing ethnic politics. And that's why Biden's numbers among African Americans have dropped by 15% since the last election and
Yeah.
still going down. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I gave you probably more than you asked for, but I just thought we needed to understand what we're up against.
Yeah.
And as long as the people who support those Republicans don't call the congressman, send the letters, and put the pressure on, these people are going to think they're doing the right thing.
Yeah, and one of the sad things I think is the state of the affairs of the government, the state of the affairs that we have a New York Republican that truly lied on every part of his campaign and still yet in office, and they have not worked to remove him. Now we have a Democratic senator that's under fire from New Jersey. And at least the Democrats are saying, a lot of them are saying it's time for him to resign.
Well, let me tell you the reason why the Democrats want him to resign. It's not because all of a sudden they got so righteous. They need him to resign because New Jersey has a Democratic governor.
Yeah.
And if he resigns, the governor can appoint another Democrat, and the Democratic majority in the Senate, which is a slim thing only by one vote, then Schumer and them can stay in power.
Yeah.
And so that's why they need him, because there's a big difference between an indictment. The last time they indicted this guy, it took 2 years to bring him into trial,
Yeah.
from 2015 to 2017. And then he's going to make some statement on the floor about he been taking out a little money from his check, and that's the money he done saved at home. Right. You done saved $500,000 stuffed in jackets, and then you got gold bars, which most of us can't get, that's got the fingerprints of the Egyptian security people on them. Okay? And so how are you saving your money in Egypt?
Well, I do understand those immigrants that don't trust banking systems and everything like that. I don't have money stuffed in different pockets in my household. Now I know my wife; she does have money stuffed. There's a dollar here or $5 there that she forget that she put in the back pocket until she washes, or she'll be like, "Woo, look what the Lord done blessed me with." but when it comes down to thousands and all that, you kind of like, okay, you don't know anything about a safe. You're putting them in coat jackets. Come on now, that's suspicious,
Well, this guy was suspicious the last time they went after him, when he had the lover in South America, and he was lying about being sick, and he was going off to meet with her, and they finally tracked him down and everything. So he's got a consistent pattern going here, and Jersey has a strange pattern of people in terms of political problems. So those are the real issues that we cannot ignore while we're looking at things like gas prices and food prices, and what was $5 last year is $10 this year. And let's not even forget that with the climate change, the number of disasters requiring the support from the government to address people, in so many instances, we are the ones that are being hit the hardest, because there are so many of us that can't afford to just go to the Marriott and check in and stay, while they do something about the house.
Yeah.
And we just can't do that. Even people who have homeowner insurance don't realize that the insurance itself is usually racistly proportioned, because if you live in a certain neighborhood like La Jolla and something happens, they'll put you up at the Hyatt or the Marriott. But if you live in Barrio Logan and something happened to your house, they'll put you at Motel 6.
Yep. If they upscale you, it's Travel Lodge.
Yeah.
So let me just say this. You know how they say, there's a cliche say, don't hate the player, hate the game?
Yeah.
Donald Trump, I really, really think that people need to just take a deep breath and check out Donald Trump's game. Because I really believe that if anybody with a sane, real look at how Trump is playing the game would realize that he's pimping the whole entire system, and he is being the biggest pimp of them all. You know what I'm saying? Now, I know that there are people in jail right today who never pulled the trigger, but they created an environment that caused people to lose their life. So check out Donald Trump. Number one, he's supposed to be running for president, but he don't want to be on none of the debate stages.
Ain't gotta be.
You know, so
He's so far ahead in the polls.
Yeah.
What do he need to go on the pro for?
he ain't gonna even come to the debate. So y'all might as well stop asking him, because he gonna do something in the same city.
Yeah.
But he gonna do it down the road, because he gonna say y'all not important enough. It's about me.
Right.
Then he gonna say, now look, we need to make this little bad. So all my Trumpites that are in the government right now, shut it down. Because see, I want it to be so bad that I'll be their best choice, because they'll think that I'm the savior, not
yeah.
realizing that I orchestrated this nonsense.
In the first place.
And then he starts saying who he wants bumped off.
Oh,
So
yeah.
he just basically said that Mark Milley?
Yeah, Mark Milley, the outgoing chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Yeah.
He wants him executed.
Yeah. And so all of these things that are being said by this man, he's trying to be the puppeteer. And then what I really, really have to say about him, that, you know, now that he's been indicted in New York and they done stopped his business and put holds on everything, you know, he still has the same Shaggy, shout out to Shaggy, because he got that "it wasn't me." You know, I live in a 30,000 square foot penthouse that now is 10,000. So he's inflated and literally lied for years to get favorable business practice of the art of the deal, and yet people are still following this liar, this thief, this chaotic person, and now they want to try to make him president again. This is the biggest mistake that people need to wake up and smell the coffee. I don't care if he's Republican or Democrat. This person is deranged. And and all the medical people need to go and get him help and commit him, because he is like Nero, getting ready to fiddle while the city burns.
Oh, he goes light the fire and play the fiddle. And you are so right about Trump. All these things are known. You know, from the people of the minority leader of the Senate. He knows, because these are people who called him crazy and everything, and then they backtrack to kiss the ring to go do all of this kind of stuff, which is insane in terms of what this man is doing. But see, this is the key. The racism in America is so deep. The people know that he's unfit, but he is the rallying card for all races who feel there's too many of them here, and we're losing our country to people that don't look like us. And the only way we're going to make this thing right is to let it collapse completely, have a civil war, show up in our fatigues with our AR-15s, and start killing off those people that don't look like us. That is the ultimate goal, as if they can redeem America. And it's not going to be a civil war, because it's not a war within the country over geographical splits. I mean, the people who support Trump, they're everywhere. And the saddest part is the number of black people who support him. And we know some of them. You can't talk to them about him. You can't say nothing about him. You can't say nothing about what he's responsible for. They all drink the Kool-Aid that Fox has been pouring, and they just think that this is the way it's going to be.
My question is, this the contradictory of Make America Great Again. My whole energy is, but you're spending more time destroying the mere fabric of America. You did everything that you can to destroy the peaceful passing of power. Everything that's supposed to make us great, you have spit on. And yet and still, you still want to be a MAGA. And I'm like sitting up there like, are you guys understanding the craziness of it? He is literally telling you to your face, I don't care about this country. I care about my power and my position. And everybody say, oh, but he's making it so much better. Well, just think about it. Racism is an all-time high. Black people, in the hate crimes in America, no matter that if we make up less of the population, we are still the number one people that have had hate crimes against them year after year after year.
Well, just look at what happened this week. We got a front page story. 17 Hell's Angels have been indicted by our San Diego County District Attorney for the June 6 attack on 3 young black men, 19, 20, and 21. One guy even pulled out a knife, opened it, and stabbed a man in the chest. It's by the grace of God, he's still living. The good news is that the DA was able to rally the police, the sheriff, and all these elements to pursue and get these people arrested and brought forward. Do you know how many incidents we've had of hate crimes in East County where the sheriff's department didn't even want to report it as a hate crime because they didn't want to do the paperwork? And so this is important. And the second editorial I wrote this week points out something that, okay, Hell's Angels was organized in 1938. They got famous in terms of their biker stuff. Sons of Anarchy on HBO kind of patterned after it with some of them in it. But these people have made their money in drugs and guns, and they have been a threat to the very fabric. I remember about 10 or 12 years ago, they had a big rally in Vegas, and it ended up being a shootout.
Yep.
And so they think there's no limit on what they can do. So it's significant. But the indictment doesn't mean anything if by the time we get to trial, they have found a jury of their peers, which would be 12 white folks who think y'all should have killed the niggas in the first place. And those people can acquit them and they can walk free.
Yeah.
And I know I use the N-word, but that's the way it's viewed. We can't get hung up on some letters in the alphabet and let that be the excuse for missing what's really on the table.
Yeah.
And so we got to get a jury. And why am I saying this? Because when most of us get a letter for jury duty, we find ways to get out of it. We don't want to serve. And then when our loved ones are on trial, the people who are on the jury don't look like us because we didn't serve. So we got to decide, do we want justice without participation, or do we want just his story with us always on the reaction line?
Yeah. And so, you know, what I'm saying to everybody is now's the time for us to get active, for us to be well read versed, understanding that the writing is on the wall. When you look at what the rhetoric that Donald Trump is spewing, again, if you are a wolf, no matter how many sheep's clothing that you put on, you are still a wolf.
Right.
And it's in your nature. And you know how they said the story about the frog and the spider. The spider was on a lily pad and he needed to get to land. And he saw a frog and he said to Mr. Frog, will you let me climb on your back and you can ride me over to the shore so I could be the safety? And the frog said, no, because if I do that, you will bite me and I will die. And the spider said, no, sir. If you let me get on your back, I promise you I won't bite you because I would die too. You know? And so he convinced the frog, you know, y'all listen to this. He convinced the frog to get it. So while the frog is swimming to shore, he feels a prick on his head. And he said, ouch, you bit me. And he said, well, what you think? It's in my nature to bite you. So basically, it's in Donald Trump's nature to misuse you, to abuse you. Anything, even if he loses his own life, he will do it to try to get his way. And I'm just saying to everybody, get your money together. Let's go buy Trump Towers and let's turn it over. You know, let's get all the golf course.
Well, you know what? It's going to end up in bankruptcy, receivership, and being auctioned.
Yeah.
Let's be clear about what just happened this week in New York. Letitia James, the attorney general that brought the lawsuit against Trump and his sons and his family, she went into court on a part of the lawsuit seeking a summary judgment. A summary judgment is a motion that says, Your Honor, these are all the facts. They did everything I said. There's no need us even going to trial. I just need you to rule on this so we can save that money and move on. The judge looked at it and agreed with James 100%, found that Trump had engaged in lying about over $150 million in assets and the whole bit. And so he granted the motion. So they don't even have to try him. She, in effect, now has a conviction on that portion. The only thing left is for the judge to sentence them before they even do the rest. But it's civil, and it won't be enough to keep him from running. We do have a couple of states looking at the 14th Amendment The key is going to rest with the case in D.C. and the case in Atlanta, because if those two cases, either one of them gives him a conviction, then he's going to be locked out of running for president, even on the appeal. And the people who support Trump, they want to make him president, even if they got to swear him in while he's in the orange jumpsuit.
Yeah. And the thing was simply this, somebody said, well, you're giving it too much time. It is important that we have these conversations, and not only are we talking about it, but we're praying about it, and we're seeking God's direction, because we know that this is a society that if we don't speak on it, then people will go blindly and vote blindly, because they love, in America, they love celebrities.
Well, our solution, Joe Biden might not be everything perfect and all that, but he's all that we have at this point.
Yeah.
Okay? And, Winston Churchill once said this. He said, democracy is a poor form of government, but all the others are so much worse.
Yeah.
Okay? And so if that's the only game we got, do we give this game up, saying Biden is too old, or they're not worried about his age as much as they are afraid of Harris becoming president.
Yeah.
Because if he dies, she becomes president. That scares them to no end.
Yeah.
That's what the real game is, because there's only a 2 or 3 year difference between Trump and Biden.
Exactly. Well, let's go to a lighter note.
Okay.
Today here in the city of San Diego, Reverend George Walker Smith, a school was renamed after him, the new Central Wilson campus, a mega campus in the city on the main drag in San Diego on El Cajon Boulevard, was renamed the Reverend George Walker Smith School. George Walker Smith was was the first African American school board member and a civil rights leader and activist in our community. Dr. Warren, what's your thoughts on this? I think that the hardship about getting schools named and libraries named after yourself, you have had to pass away.
Yeah, supposedly. I mean, that's what the Romans and the Greeks said. We won't name anything after you until after you die, because we don't know if you'll mess up after we do it.
Exactly.
And we've seen that happen. In the case of Reverend George Walker Smith, he was the first black elected official in San Diego. He served on the school board here for 16 years. I met him before I ever even knew about San Diego. I met him in the National School Boards Association movement, and I was a board member from D.C. He became in 73, 76, the first African American to become president of the National School Boards Association, which at the time had over 90,000 members, predominantly white, more right-wing than the John Birch Society. A Republican who was loved by Pete Wilson and the founder of the Catfish Club, and a political person to reckon with, who opened the doors for not only Bertha Pendleton, became our first black superintendent, but Shirley Weber, who served on the school board as a president, and right on down the line, the blacks that we've had, even today, the Sharon Whitehurst Stone being there. So George did all of these things. He was one of the few people in this community to get an honorary doctorate of humanities and laws from San Diego State University, which was very significant. And to my knowledge, there are only 3 schools in San Diego County named after African Americans. Mm-hmm. There's this new campus, as they refer to it.
Yeah.
It's got a ton of buildings, and I mean, it is huge. Like a prison complex is so big. Mm-hmm. And so it's called Central City, but it's now going to be the George Walker Smith education complex, from elementary to middle school on up. So that part is very important in terms of what's represented with that being there. The other school is the Walter Porter complex off of 47th Street in Ocean View.
Yeah.
And there are 2 campuses there.
Yeah.
And then the third school named after an African American is the Fahari Jeffries School in Chula Vista.
Yeah.
And so
then there's Jack Kimbrough.
And Jack Kimbrough, yes. And of course, Dr. Kimbrough is the Kimbrough Elementary School. I knew Dr. Kimbrough, and my wife knew him and his sons and the whole bit. And he was significant. He was a dentist by profession. He looked like he was white. He maybe could have passed. But Kimbrough, along with Hartwell Ragsdale, and John Jacobs.
Yeah.
Those guys came together, formed the first Urban League chapter here, fought the restrictive covenant issues that kept blacks from being able to live in places like Emerald Hills,
Yeah.
any place, you know, east of the cemetery.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the cemetery complex coming from downtown and you circle around Imperial, you need to understand that in days gone by, cemeteries were at the outskirts of town. They weren't in town.
Exactly.
And so all that land around there, they just grew. And then there was an effort to keep blacks from buying, and they had straw purchases. They had whites that bought for them, and places like Valencia Park had black investors, even though they didn't want black people to live there initially. I think Diana Ross had real estate in that, interest in that. So all of this is important history in terms of what happened today. And Reverend Smith's granddaughter spoke, I guess, on behalf of the family. And so we did a big story, and pictures is in the paper and online now. So it was dedication, but the decision to name it, I understood, was made right after he died.
Yes.
That it was carried before the board when Cindy Martin was here, and that was probably the reason she was supposed to have come back today for this activity.
Yes, yes. And so we just wanted to acknowledge that. And let's talk about the immigration and kind of like the politics of this border thing, because discrimination is taking place at the border while they're still trying to keep folks in and out and everything else that nature. So let's talk about that in the Haitian Project.
Okay, well, we got to talk about several things when we talk about what's happening at the border. I mean, over the weekend, at one point, over 11,000 people came in. Homeland Security is picking up these people when they let them in, putting them on buses and dropping them off in different cities at places. In this case, they were dropping thousands over the weekend off at the San Ysidro Civic Center. And so we know that we had Haitians that were there for the past 2 or 3 years based on the special entry permission they were given after the major earthquake that hit Haiti. And then we saw back in January, February, when the war broke out between Russia and the Ukraine, that Ukraine people were making their way to to Tijuana, and we were letting them in the country before the Haitians that were sitting there on the sidelines waiting. So today I had a reporter go down to the border scenario and interview some people. There's a story online with it. And so there were some Haitians there. There were few. We found out over the weekend that a lot of the people there, they had money and resources. They just needed to get in the country. And so some of them, the volunteers over the weekend, took their money and bought them various cards that had the money on it so they could go to the airport. The people we interviewed today were trying to get to New York so they could look for work. Many of these people who are being let in are being given some hearing dates in terms of their hearing with, with the custom people and getting into the country. But we've had attorneys that work with immigration indicate over the weekend that they still have people who were placed on the waiting list for court hearings in 2015. And here we are 8 years later. These people don't care about the wait. All they care about is getting into the country. They know once they get here, they're going to find work while they're waiting for whatever is going to come. Some will respond to the numbers, some will not. And so right now, because the Haitians are still, in effect, being discriminated against, people here are collecting all kinds of goods for them. The Voice and Viewpoint is a drop-off point, and we're getting bags of supplies every day that we have in the office. I understand they're going to be picked up, transported to St. Stephen's, where they have a room to hold all of this stuff. Then they're going to be moving the stuff across the border. So what people were doing here for Ukraine in terms of gathering supplies and sending things, we have been doing for the Haitians because they've been left out in so many ways. And we're glad that we can do something to be of help. But the bigger problem is that this country is not dealing with this problem. And that's why I did this editorial today that talks about the border, duty, privilege, responsibility. We have a duty because we put it into law. If you look at the Statute of Liberty at Ellis Island where they enter, that reads, "Give me your tired, your weary, breathing to be free. You're hungry, you're homeless." All of the descriptions in that first paragraph on that statute are met by the people who are still coming through that dangerous divide from South America, coming forward here, flooding, jumping on trains, risking their lives, and we are not doing anything. Biden, Trump, government, we need to do whatever it takes to shut this stuff down. We need to start deporting people instead of giving them cards to come and wait. Send them back where they come from. Mexico is a conspirator in this because they're letting the people come into their country. They stopped it at one point. We probably bribed them to hold it up, and now they're still coming. And we cannot sustain people still coming. I like to use this example, Dr. Thompson. If you like your coffee black and you start pouring cream into it, there's a point at which you're going to have so much cream in it, you won't even be able to tell it was coffee. And that's what's happening here. People are just coming. The burden's being put on cities, which is wrong. The federal government is not doing what they should. Homeland Security is a co-conspirator in terms of dropping these people off by 1,000 and trying to make it someone else's responsibility. And even when they get involved in crime, we get treated differently as black folks who are caught in any criminal activity from folks coming here, and we're not sending them back. So it's a crisis, and we need to speak up. And it's not wrong to get up, to speak up and say, there's got to be an end to this. Coming here is a privilege. Controlling it is the responsibility that not only our government officials have, but we have as the very citizens who are going to be impacted if there's no limit to it. I'm sorry that people we know have family members. My heart goes out to you, but I didn't make your people come through that divide. I didn't make your family take those risks. I didn't make you bring your kids through the Constantine wire in Texas so that the border people had to cut the wire to get you off of it to bring you in the country rather than let you die there. You put yourself in that position of risk. And I'm not responsible for getting you out of that position at the risk of destroying ourselves as a country. And I don't care whether people like that or not, but somebody needs to speak up.
So do you think that right now, for all intents and purposes, we should shut the borders down?
Oh, yes. I think the borders should be locked down. I think we shouldn't let nobody else in the country. I don't care what the issue is. It needs to be shut down till we get control. We haven't had an immigration bill since 1980s, in the 80s, 86, whenever it was, 80s or 90s. And we got two problems. We got people that need to be here for jobs that are available. The crops. Americans not going to bend over and pick any strawberries. We're too lazy. We don't want to work. We ain't going to help ourselves. So we had a Bracero program in the 1960s. Adam Clayton Powell created this program, and it was a continuation from the 30s where people came to this country, especially into Florida. They picked the fruit. They got paid as migrant fruit pickers, and when the season was over, they took their money and they went back home. Okay. And it worked out very well. A man by the name of Ernesto Gonzalez set the program up. And then we set up schools for the kids that start coming with them. So we've done a lot to do this, but we got people today who are politicians and not statesmen. Mm-hmm. And the difference is a politician looks for expediency and a statesman looks to posterity in terms of what is the impact today and tomorrow of the decision. And we've got people now who just don't give a damn.
Mm-hmm. So in the long run, we have to start looking at the resources that we have and how we can actually allow people to come that might want to work in different areas that are not being populated by quote unquote the current American people, and allowing them to come in and then be able to go back across. Because the funny thing for me is there's so many Americans now that are living across the border. You know what I'm saying? So if we can work over here and live over there, why can't we allow them to work over here and live over there?
Well, we have programs. We have programs for that. Matter of fact, earlier this year, they had a program on television. There were probably some A bus holds about 40 people. So there were about approximately 120 some Mexicans that had their green cards and permission. The buses met them and they interviewed these people as they filled these three buses. They were going north into the valley to work on the fruit and everything. And they were returning. They were legally coming each year. They had work contracts. One guy said, well, I'll go back home in September. I'm building a home. I need the money for my family, and I'll have enough to finish what I'm doing. So the programs exist and have. These people don't care about the programs. They just heard that you can get political asylum, you can get in, they won't mess with you. If we stop putting them on a plane the moment, give them that cheese sandwich and putting them on a plane and send them back, and they got to go through the barren straits all over again through that jungle, it'll slow it down. But we got some kind of false sense of humanity, or is it because we're afraid we're going to offend somebody's relative or a friend because we got a friend that came this way and now they're trying to get their mama and their cousin. This is like triage.
So would you say that America now has the image of being Captain Save-A-Hole?
Oh, it does. And you know what? When you think about years ago, an actress named Tallulah Bankhead did a movie called Lifeboat. And the ship had sunk, and they had this lifeboat, and all these people were in the water wanting to get in this one boat. They pulled so many in, and then they realized if we put any more people in, this boat's going to sink. So now there were alive people in life jackets who were being pushed away from the boat with paddles and knowing they were going to die, but the folks in the boat knew if they put them in, all of them were going to die. This is a triage concept. And so this is what we have. We got people trying to get in this country, and then we got the mega Trump people trying to cut food stamps, housing subsidies, health care, everything that we're doing to help. We want to kill our own while we're complaining about that situation, but they won't take any action in the House or Senate to stop it.
So we should end off tonight with hashtag shut it down.
Yeah, it should be. And I mean, a lot of people are going to be upset about it, but you'll get over it. Shut it down before it reaches the point that we can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And we're headed there.
Yeah. And if we shut it down for 3 or 4 years, then I think that people will get the message that it's just not going to be a free walk.
Well, we don't even have to shut it down that long. If you go back and look at the statutes, and I've been doing a story on the color of immigration research since last summer, America's quota system supposedly allows 625,000 people from all countries a year to come in as citizens. And we do that because we have attrition. We have so many people dying a day, so many born, birth rates are down, jobs are there. We had to put a freeze on those technical grants because, you had places like India and places, they were just training people to flood us when we had our own people here who could be using those skills. I remember being in Tijuana downtown and seeing there was a school set up that was loaded with people who were preparing to get computer skills so they could come to the country. 10 years ago, there was a graduating class in the Philippines of 40,000 nurses that we were training to send them over here. And when they get here, the first jobs they take are in the rehab and nursing homes because they are not unionized and they will work cheap. And after they get the experience, then they try to go and get jobs in the major hospitals but we have people here. Now in San Diego County, we've done something we hadn't done before. We've set up training programs, both in the community college and with the schools that train caregivers and, apprentices and nursing assistants. We're making some progress, but we're not doing half of what we should do.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Warren, these are all topics that we have to continue to discuss. And I know on October 17th, we have the next rendition of Biscuits, Grits, and Politics. What's the topic going to be there? Because I know people, we set up for 100 folks. And last time we had close to 170 people that came in. So we're telling people early Go online and register. Get your tickets for Biscuits, Grits, and Politics. It's only $20, and you get the best breakfast in town. Matter of fact, you get a $40 breakfast for $20.
Yes, you do.
Yes, and you get this great networking opportunity, but great topic. So, what's the topic going to be on the 17th?
The topic on the 17th is the politics of hate. And what makes it different from the webinars that we've done and the town hall meetings with the district attorney, discussing cases and stuff in our community is we're bringing people in from the various communities that have been impacted by the hate. Because sometimes the people are in a silo and they're not really dealing with other folks who are similarly situated. So these three black guys, that was significant that happened to them in Ocean Beach. We've already seen what's happened to the Asian community. We also know that when we had 9/11, the Chaldean or our Iraqi community was attacked by people in East County. The Sia Indians, in terms of their beliefs with the turbans, they were the victims and women were the victims. And then we have Africans from a number of countries that have some of their own internal conflicts, but they try to stay, these groups try to stay to themselves, but yet they're all impacted, and we're trying to get them to collectively come together as we work this campaign we have to stop the hate, to make people aware. We, African Americans, are still the group with the largest number of hate incidents in the state and probably in the country. And so this is going to be a very important meeting. Even though the DA will be there, it won't be a situation for the DA just to talk to people. We're going to have real live interaction and exchange. And this time, we're even going to go a step further, brother, Dr. Thompson. Last time we had to stop right on time because we were streaming. We're going to make arrangements this time that when we run overtime, if there's some discussion that people want to continue beyond the 7 to 9, then we're going to see if we can just keep an open discussion going maybe for another hour with folks so that nobody leaves frustrated. So hopefully that all of that will help.
Well, Dr. Warren, one of the things that we're going to do is that we're going to give some clear ground rules to the whole Biscuits, Grits, and Politics. When we get to the open forum and we say, what is your question? Now, I want to be very clear because this is going to be so important because we don't want to have to go to index cards where you write your question down. But a lot of times people like to give the precursor. They like to give the background story before they ever ask the question. When you get the mic, it is, what is your question? My question is. And anything other than that, you will see the director, which is me.
Cut the mic off.
Cut the mic off.
And
say,
I'm not bashful about telling you like I had to do before. I don't need a speech from you. Just give me your question.
Exactly. Because what happens is when people start doing the speech version, it limits how many questions can be asked and answered by the panelists. The panelists are the experts that we're inviting in for that day.
And we always have to make the panelists be short with their answers too.
Exactly.
Because they'll eat up time giving you a long speech that doesn't relate to beyond what they need to say. So it's going to be an equal opportunity mic control.
Yeah. Can I say this, Dr. Warren?
Yes.
You know how we say biscuits, grits in politics?
Yeah.
See, if y'all don't know, grits is hot. And if you throw some hot grits on somebody, it kind of sticks to them.
Oh, yes.
So the Biscuits, Grits, and Politics let you know that we're going to have hot discussions. We're going to have good food. But, it's not that we're going to always agree. There will be some energy that's in the room, but that's the reason why the forum is there, to have real conversation with real people and with real situations.
And we need to let you know that with the open seating that goes with this, you can go now on Eventbrite, register and pay your $20. It's not the earth-shaking amount of money. And you need to know that the open seating means that if you get there early enough, you can pick pretty much where you sit. And unlike before, we will start serving at 6:45. The grits will be hot. The eggs will be as they should be. They won't be sticking or anything. The grits are going to be as they should be with the butter available. And the sausage is going to be link sausage. and not what we had before. And we've been meeting to correct anything, and there will not be any shortage of catfish.
Everything is going to be fine. This next go around, we have better laid out our plan, and so the one thing that we said to everybody was everybody did enjoy the food.
Oh, they did.
Now it's fine tuning the whole process.
Yes.
And that's why you hear Dr. Warren saying, yes, we have a hard stop at 9, but we will stay behind afterwards to continue to answer questions and to make sure that nobody walks away frustrated.
But Dr. Thompson, also you made it clear that within an hour after the program, the whole thing was on the internet.
Yeah.
So if you missed it, you could stream it. And that's not an excuse, folks, to stay, because we're not putting it online until we have a minimum of 100 people
Yeah.
that have signed up.
Exactly.
We don't need you to wait till the last minute. If you don't turn your names in, I'm telling you, you will be turned away. We had people showing up like, oh, yeah, I can pay it. No, you cannot pay. We're not going to be paying at the door. This is the whole reason. We have to discipline ourselves to participate in structures that allow us to benefit each other. It costs us more than $20 a plate to provide this.
Yeah. Now, somebody might say, well, Dr. Warren, we want to do it, but we don't know where to go and everything. So everybody who's listening tonight, you could go to Eventbrite, and it's Biscuits, Grits, and Politics. You put it in there, it's going to pop up. For those that are on Facebook and listen to us tonight, I just put it up in the feed. Click on the link right now. Get your tickets. I'm telling you, they're going to go fast because people were left at the door last time and could not get in because we had already reached capacity. And a large portion of the capacity has to do with COVID safety. There's only 6 people at a table.
That's right.
So that we can keep it safe and that we can make sure that we don't become a breeding site for COVID.
Yes.
And so this is a power move in the city of San Diego. Power brokers come together, networking is taking place, and pretty much the who's who of making decisions in San Diego comes to Biscuits, Grits, and Politics, a remnants of when we had the San Diego Catfish Club.
Yes, and people who haven't been there, trust me, as we keep doing this every month, which we plan to, they're going to come. Yeah. And if you're older like some of us and you're saying, well, I can't deal with that QR code and stuff, you can stop by the office. And, if you want to take a table, that's 6 people, that's $120. You can come pay for it, but you got to give us the names of the people.
Yeah.
So that we, even with open season, we're only letting people in who are identified in terms of the seating. And we're going to number the tables for convenience this time in terms of open seating. But the networking part, we made sure people had time to talk to each other and go from table and visit. And we haven't been able to do this since before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And we're going to keep doing it. We're excited about it. We need you to make it work. We need you to just come on and get involved with this so that we can make it great.
And then last but not least, as we get ready to close out today of the show, and if you have a topic that you think that should be on the forum and on the panel, please send it in, because what Dr. Warren and the San Diego Voice and Viewpoint has always asked you, send in your letters, send in your editorials, and they're all seen. And if they're good, no matter if we agree with them or not, if they're good, we'll put it in.
We'll make it work.
Exactly. So this is not just a one-sided conversation. We want your input as we build out this platform for us in the city of San Diego to take on local, regional, and national issues right here in San Diego. Well, Dr. Warren, we have ran out of time.
Yes, we have. And we thank you all who are here that have listened and stayed with us. You're always welcome to send your comments in, to call in, and we appreciate you, and we don't know how to thank you.
Well, with that being said, you all have a blessed night. Until next week, y'all be blessed.